Nathan couldn't deny it anymore. He loved Vanessa. But did she love him back? What even was love, really? He imagined her saying she wanted to stay married, but keep her entertainment on the side. Flipping the scenario, Nathan wondered if he'd leave if guaranteed a platinum membership to Vanessa. Probably not. He'd want the perks, sure, but he'd also crave a real relationship. Some deep thinker I am, Nathan muttered, rubbing his temples. One thing was becoming clear through the mental fog: they couldn't go on like this. Vanessa living her double life. If they had any shot at survival, her current job had to go. But Nathan's ego rebelled at the thought of being known as the town cuckold. "Forgive me for having a spine," he grumbled to the empty room. Vanessa would have to give it all up: lifestyle, job, the works. Fat chance of that happening. Moving away wasn't an option either. Nathan knew her too well, she'd never agree. Exhausted by his circular thoughts, he finally drifted off. The smell of breakfast dragged Nathan back to consciousness. He stumbled through his morning routine: shower, shave, dress, before heading downstairs. Vanessa was just finishing up in the kitchen. Grabbing a coffee, he planted a quick kiss on her cheek and sat down. A perfect Denver omelet with bacon and toast waited for him, just the way he liked it. The domesticity of it all felt surreal, given what he knew about her other life. "Thanks for breakfast," Nathan managed, his throat tight. "Time to face the music. We need to talk, Vanessa." Vanessa took a few more bites, then casually tossed her leftovers and cleaned her plate. Grabbing her purse, she headed for the door. "I'm serious," Nathan insisted, his temper flaring. "We need to discuss everything." "You're right," Vanessa replied, not breaking stride. "But not now. I've got things to do. Olivia's expecting me." Fury bubbled up in Nathan's chest. "This is our marriage we're talking about. Is Olivia more important than that?" Vanessa paused, turning to face him. "Listen, sweetheart. I know you think it's urgent, but I've got commitments. I'll be home late, but if you're still up, we can talk then. Okay? Love you." The door slammed shut before Nathan could respond. "Yeah, me too," he muttered to the empty house. He sat there, stunned. 16 years together, and this was what it had come to. Nathan dragged himself to work, but focus eluded him. His secretary kept checking on him, probably wondering if he'd finally lost it. By lunchtime, he'd had enough and decided to bail early. He needed to talk to someone about this mess, but who? Then it hit him: his sister, Samantha. If anyone could help him sort through this disaster, it was her. He dialed her office and was put through immediately. "Hey, little brother," Samantha's warm voice came through the line. 3 years his senior and twice as wise, she'd always been his rock. "What's up? Got a few minutes?" Nathan asked, his voice strained. "I need to talk." "That bad, huh?" Samantha's tone turned serious. "Come on over. I'll clear my afternoon. We'll figure this out." Nathan felt a small wave of relief wash over him. "Thanks, Samantha. I really appreciate it." He left work, mumbling something about being out for the day to his confused receptionist. When he arrived at Samantha's office, he was ushered in immediately. Samantha looked up from her desk, concern etched on her face. She crossed the room and enveloped him in a sisterly hug before leading him to the couch. "No offense, Nathan, but you look like hell," she said bluntly. "What's going on? Is it Vanessa?" Nathan nodded, feeling the dam about to burst. "Yeah, and it's driving me insane." "Tell me everything," Samantha urged, settling in for what promised to be a long and painful conversation. Nathan took a deep breath and spilled everything. He told Samantha about discovering Vanessa's secret life at Sapphire Skies, the expensive trinkets she'd bought with her earnings, her affairs with Trevor and Mayor Richard Thompson, the whole sordid mess. Samantha listened, her eyes widening with each revelation. When Nathan finished, she sat back, processing it all. "So you're telling me that Vanessa, your wife of 16 years, has been living this double life the entire time?" she asked, her voice a mix of disbelief and anger. Nathan nodded, his shoulders slumping. "Yeah, that about sums it up." Samantha stared at him for a long moment before speaking. "And you don't know what to do?" she asked, incredulous. Something like that, Nathan mumbled. In the next instant, Samantha's hand connected with the back of his head. Nathan yelped, more from surprise than pain. Your wife is a prostitute, and you don't know what to do. Look, I love you, little brother, but take this as tough love. Were you born this dense, or did you have to work at it? Nathan gaped at his sister. She'd always been direct, but this was a new level of bluntness. Consider it a wake-up call, Samantha continued, her voice softening slightly. Prostitution is illegal in this state. Who knows what else she's mixed up in? And you mentioned she's raking in the cash. Any idea if she's reporting that income to the IRS? Nathan shook his head. No clue. She's never mentioned it once in the last 2 years. According to the manager at Sapphire Skies, they set her up as some kind of independent contractor. Client Services, LLC, or something equally ridiculous. He said they don't withhold taxes, and he thinks she might have set up a business to avoid using her social security number. Samantha's eyebrows shot up. And you haven't confronted her about any of this? I tried this morning, Nathan said defensively. She blew me off, said she had things to do, and took off. Samantha pinched the bridge of her nose, clearly fighting frustration. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I don't practice family law, but I know a few attorneys who do. I'm calling one right now, and we're getting you in for a consultation this afternoon. I'm coming with you. Relief washed over Nathan. Thanks, Samantha. I owe you one. You owe me several, she retorted, pulling out her phone. But who's counting? Nathan sipped the coffee Samantha's assistant had brought while his sister made the call. After a few minutes, she returned to the couch. You're in luck, Samantha said. I got hold of Marcus Jenkins. He's the best in the business, at least in this town. He's got an opening for us, and he's bringing in a pie. We leave now, we can make it just in time. It's within walking distance, so we won't even have to fight for parking. Nathan nodded, feeling a mix of dread and determination as he followed Samantha out of her office. 30 minutes later, they found themselves in the reception area of Marcus Jenkins' law firm. The man himself emerged to greet them, a distinguished figure in his mid-50s with salt and pepper hair at his temples. Samantha, Marcus said warmly, extending his hand. It's been too long. This must be your brother? Introductions were made, and Marcus turned to the other man in the room. This is Eric Williams, a private investigator I often work with, he said, gesturing to a stocky, unassuming man in a slightly rumpled suit. They all shook hands and settled into chairs. Marcus leaned forward, his expression turning serious. So, I understand you have a family situation. Let's hear it, and we'll see what we can do. Nathan took a deep breath and launched into his story for the second time that day. He wondered how many more times he'd have to relive this nightmare by telling it. Marcus and Eric took notes as Nathan spoke, exchanging glances now and then. When Nathan finished, Marcus sat back in his chair, a strange expression on his face. So your wife, Vanessa, is the infamous Scarlet Siren, who works at Sapphire Skies? Marcus asked, his tone carefully neutral. Yes, Nathan confirmed. I've even spoken to the club manager. Is that a problem? Marcus glanced at Eric before responding, his discomfort evident. I'll be frank with you, Nathan. As much as I'd like to take your case and your money, I can't. There might be a conflict of interest. Nathan's stomach dropped. What do you mean? Are you representing her? No, nothing like that, Marcus said quickly. But I have utilized her services on several occasions. You mean you've been a client? Samantha said flatly, her eyes narrowing. Marcus nodded, having the grace to look ashamed. Yes. I'm not married, and well. I'm sorry, Nathan. I didn't know she was married. I've never seen her wear a ring. Nathan felt like he might be sick. Marcus continued, his words hitting Nathan like physical blows. Truth be told, Nathan, she probably services most of the divorce attorneys in the city, probably the county. A few judges, Mayor Thompson, as you already know, and rumor has it, a state senator or two. There's even talk she's been with the governor once or twice. I thought prostitution was illegal in this state, Nathan said weakly. Marcus shrugged. It is. There was no direct exchange of money, and she called it stress counseling. I know it's a fine line, but that's how it was framed. Nathan's head was spinning. So what should I expect if I decide to divorce her? Marcus's expression was grim. I can sum up your situation in 2 words: you're screwed. This is a no-fault state, so you can't even bring up adultery in a divorce. Even if you could, it wouldn't matter since you've already said you agreed to an open marriage from the start. He continued, each word driving the knife deeper. This is a community property state, meaning you'll have to split everything: bank accounts, savings, house, retirement plans, the works. No kids, so no child support, but you could be on the hook for alimony. Alimony? Nathan sputtered. She's made more in 2.5 years than I have in my entire life. Why the hell would I have to pay alimony? Do you have anything showing how much she's made? Marcus asked. 1099 forms, anything like that? Nathan shook his head, defeated. Nothing. That's the problem, Marcus said. On top of that, she can hire the best lawyer money can buy, rack up all kinds of legal fees, and make the court cover it. There are a million ways she can drag this out. Counseling, for instance. You end up with no real evidence to present in court. Nathan slumped in his chair. So what am I supposed to do? Marcus hesitated. Well, you could just leave. Don't tell her where you're going. Don't give her any information. Just disappear and let her stew for a while. Maybe she'll use some of that money to hire a pie to track you down and file for divorce herself. I can't do that, Nathan said, shaking his head. I've got a job here, clients. I'm not the type to run. Eric, who had been silent until now, cleared his throat. I might have an idea. They all turned to look at him. What is it? Samantha asked. Why don't I tail her for a bit? Eric suggested. Me and my team. See what we can dig up. I've still got some friends in Vice, and I know they've been itching to get a look at Sapphire Skies for a while now. Place is slippery. They always seem to know when undercover cops show up. But they don't know me or my people. Maybe we can help Vice shut the place down. Samantha leaned forward, interested. How long would that take? Couple weeks, tops, Eric said. If you're willing to foot the bill, he added, looking at Nathan. Nathan considered it. It would be expensive, but he needed something. Sure, he said finally. Let's do it. I was saving for another cruise, but screw that now. Eric nodded, handing Nathan his card and a form to fill out. Nathan signed it and handed over a check for the retainer. Just let me know who ends up representing you, Eric said. I'll make sure they get a copy of my report. Marcus stood, extending his hand to Nathan. I'm sorry, I can't do more for you, Nathan. Nathan shook it, feeling numb. You've helped. Thanks for your time. As they prepared to leave, Samantha fixed Marcus with a steely gaze. If I were you, Marcus, I'd steer clear of that place from now on. You and I both know what goes on there, and I'd hate to see you in hot water with the state bar. Marcus nodded, chastened. Understood, counselor. Samantha and Nathan left Marcus's office, heading back to her place. Once there, Samantha turned to her brother, her face a mix of concern and determination. Look, Nathan, I know this is rough, and it's only going to get rougher, she said, her voice gentle but firm. I know another lawyer we can talk to, but she's off gallivanting in Europe with her hubby. Won't be back for 2 weeks. Let's see what Eric digs up, and when Lisa gets back, I'll give her a buzz. Nathan nodded, feeling drained. Okay. In the meantime, Samantha continued, her tone sharpening, you need to pull your head out of your ass. Dig deeper. See if you can find any tax forms, anything concrete. And for God's sake, try to keep your cool around Vanessa. I know it'll be tough, but you've got to play it smart. She's a pro at lying, so take everything she says with a metric ton of salt. And don't go after her, companions. I don't want to have to bail your sorry butt out of jail. Got it? Got it, Nathan mumbled. Good, Samantha said, her expression softening. If it gets too intense, call us. Ron and I've got a spare room you can crash in for a few days if you need it. And remember, this will get sorted out, one way or another. Nathan felt a rush of gratitude for his sister. Thanks, Samantha. I mean it. For everything. She smiled and pulled him into a hug. You're welcome, dummy. Nathan left Samantha's office, his mind buzzing. He drove home, determined to uncover whatever he could. He figured he had a few hours before Vanessa would show up, given her recent schedule. He started digging, even venturing up into the attic. To his surprise, he found a fairly new file box, the kind used for office paperwork. Opening it, he discovered several file folders. Many of them contained small envelopes with DVDs inside. Nathan had a sinking feeling about their contents but pocketed a few to check later. Then he struck gold: tax forms, 1099s, completed 1040s, various self-employment documents. They were all made out to Client Services, LLC. Nathan's jaw dropped as he scanned the numbers. According to these forms, Vanessa had raked in almost $1.5 million in 1 year. The next year, she'd already earned close to $2 million. Jesus, Nathan muttered. She must have been working overtime. But where had all that money gone? No way it was just for some old coin and a necklace. He dug deeper and found a recent statement from a bank in the Cayman Islands. Nathan's head spun as he read the balance, just over $40 million. But that wasn't all. In another folder, he found what looked like a contract. As he read it, the pieces fell into place. Vanessa wasn't just a dancer and high-priced escort. She was a bona fide adult film star with a contract for 10 feature films. In for a penny, in for a pound, Nathan thought bitterly. No wonder she was always Mia. He kept digging. In one folder, he found medical forms and bills from about 14 years back. According to them, Vanessa had undergone a C-section. Nathan's blood ran cold as he realized what it meant: an abortion. She'd also had a tubal ligation to prevent future pregnancies. Now he knew why they'd never had kids. Apparently, she'd paid for everything in cash, so he'd never seen a bill. Nathan's mind reeled. Had she really been playing him even back then? He remembered the playful banter they'd exchanged after his first out-of-town business trip. Hope you didn't hit on all the guys at the club, he'd teased when she mentioned going to Sapphire Skies while he was gone. This was at the very beginning of their marriage. Nah, silly, she'd replied with a wink. Just a few. None of them worth writing home about. He remembered similar sarcastic remarks after subsequent trips. Eventually, he just stopped asking. Now, the sordid truth seemed to be unfolding before him. And there was more. He found calendars going back 14 years. There were entries for various dates, and Nathan realized they corresponded to days he'd been out of town on business. The entries showed dollar amounts, just like the ones on the calendars in the kitchen drawer. Some of the sums were staggering. There were other notations too. Some dates had a T next to them, and Nathan wondered if it stood for his so-called friend, Trevor. Others were marked with an R, which he suspected meant Richard, the mayor. Of course, he realized it could be anyone. There were other markings on different dates, but he couldn't decipher their meaning. He noticed dates labeled with an N and figured those were the days they'd been together. He felt sick as he noticed some dates had more than one label, like N and R. The thought that she might have been with him after being with another man made his stomach churn. Behind the calendars, he found a small ledger. It looked like she'd started keeping it after 2019, which explained why he hadn't seen anything beyond that date on the calendar found in the kitchen. There were individual counseling entries and even larger fee entries that appeared about every 3 months. He didn't tally it up, but it seemed she could have easily cleared a couple million a year. Digging further, he found envelopes stuffed with cash. All told, he counted about $6,000. He also discovered folders of photos of Vanessa. Some showed her on stage, others with one or often several men. He wondered why she'd left these here and put others in the folder he'd found in the kitchen. Nathan gathered the application, hospital paperwork, tax forms, and the contract with Sapphire Skies Productions. He went to his home office and made copies on their printer. He called Samantha to fill her in on his findings. Okay, scan everything and email it to me, all right? On it, Nathan replied, already firing up the scanner. It didn't take long, and when he was done, he carefully replaced everything, hoping Vanessa wouldn't notice her box had been disturbed. He returned to his computer and picked up one of the DVDs. Something told him he'd regret watching what was on it, but he felt compelled to look. His initial assumption proved correct. The first few videos showed her in a motel room with clients. He ejected that disc and inserted another. This one showed more of the same, but the next videos were different. They showed her with only one man. In one, he recognized Mayor Richard Thompson. In another, he recognized Trevor, his so-called friend. The last video on the disc was of Vanessa and her friend Olivia. Nathan's finger hovered over the stop button, but he couldn't bring himself to press it. "God, that was amazing," Olivia purred on screen. "Wasn't it just?" Vanessa replied, her voice husky. "I bet poor Nathan would lose his mind if he saw us now," Olivia giggled. Vanessa laughed, the sound like a knife in Nathan's gut. "He'd probably ask for an instruction manual or something to figure out what just happened," she said, causing her friend to cackle. "So how much longer are you planning to keep this up?" Olivia asked, her tone turning serious. Vanessa shrugged on screen. "I don't know. As long as I can, I guess. Maybe a couple more years. Sapphire Skies has got me locked in for a while longer, at least until I finish all 10 movies. Nathan doesn't know, and with any luck, he never will. Girl, do you think you could ever go back to just one man?" Olivia asked, her eyebrows waggling. "Honestly, I don't think so," Vanessa replied. "Nathan's a nice guy and all, but there's no way he could ever satisfy me on his own. Not anymore. Besides, we barely do it twice a week these days, and even less lately." "You think he's got something on the side?" Olivia asked. "Nah, not Nathan," Vanessa said dismissively. "Once, a long time ago, but that was it." "For real though," Olivia pressed. "You know he's gonna find out eventually. It's not like you've kept it all that secret. I mean, you've been photographed in public with the mayor." "I don't know," Vanessa sighed. "Maybe I'll throw myself on his mercy or something. Even if he kicks me out or divorces me, I've got plenty of cash. It'll suck, but I'll manage. I don't think he'll miss me much. I'm barely home these days anyway." Suddenly, Olivia looked up at the camera. "Hey, turn that thing off, will you, Daniel?" "Daniel?" That was Olivia's husband? The video cut off abruptly. Nathan sat back, his mind reeling. He knew he'd have to have a chat with Daniel before this was all over. He wondered how much the man knew about their wives' antics. Nathan ejected the disc, his hands shaking slightly. He locked all the DVDs in his desk drawer, then slumped in his chair, trying to process everything he'd just seen and heard. After a while, he shut off the computer, grabbed a beer, and collapsed onto the couch in front of the TV. He didn't even register what was playing. It was just white noise to drown out his thoughts. It hit him suddenly, and he realized he was crying. Angry at himself for the show of weakness, he stomped upstairs and splashed cold water on his face. Staring at his reflection, Nathan barely recognized himself. His face was blotchy, eyes puffy from tears. But one thing was crystal clear: divorce was the only way out. There was no way he could stay with a woman he couldn't satisfy, a woman who'd lied to him for their entire marriage. He trudged back downstairs and threw together a sad excuse for a sandwich. All this drama was making him hungry, but he couldn't muster the energy to go out. Glancing at the clock, he saw it was already 10 p.m. Time flies when you're having your life turned upside down, he thought bitterly. Vanessa was still Mia. No messages, no calls. She'd said she'd be home late, and now Nathan had a pretty good idea why. He pulled up the Life 360 app on his phone. Yep, she was at Sapphire Skies. Of course she was. He switched off the phone and dragged himself to bed. The sound of the garage door opening jolted him awake. The clock read 2:30 a.m. Awesome. It's officially my birthday, Nathan thought sarcastically. Happy birthday to me. He wondered cynically how much she'd earned today. He heard Vanessa's footsteps coming up the stairs. She paused by the bed, and he felt her touch his cheek. When she pulled away, he cracked an eye open to see her looking sad. She disappeared into the bathroom, emerging a few minutes later in a long nightgown. She climbed into bed and started to snuggle up to him, but Nathan rolled away. putting as much distance between them as possible. She kissed the top of his head and settled back on her side. He thought he heard her crying softly into her pillow, but he couldn't bring himself to care anymore. After a couple of hours of tossing and turning, Nathan heard Vanessa's soft snores. He got up, threw on his robe, and crept downstairs, snagging her phone off the charger on his way. In his office, he scrolled through her message history like he had before. There were more exchanges between her and Trevor. Nathan's jaw clenched as he read. "So how's that wimpy little asshole doing?" Trevor had written. Vanessa's reply surprised him. "Stop calling him that." "Why, isn't that what he is?" Trevor shot back. "He's not a wimp," Vanessa defended. "Maybe not, but he's a pushover," Trevor wrote. "And you made him that way." "Stop reminding me of that," Vanessa responded. "So did you fuck him after our last convo?" Trevor asked crudely. "No," was Vanessa's simple reply. "Good," Trevor wrote. "Are you going on that cruise?" "Cruise? What cruise?" Nathan hadn't heard anything about a cruise. "Yeah, I'm going," Vanessa wrote back. "It's gonna be hard to explain to Nathan." "You don't have to explain it to him," Trevor replied. "Just tell him you're going. From what I hear, you can make bank on this one." "True," Vanessa agreed. "You going?" "Too rich for my blood, but maybe," Trevor wrote. "From what I hear, they're already sold out." "Pretty much," Vanessa confirmed. "Anyway, gotta get back to work." TTYL. Nathan's mind raced. He had to find out about this cruise. Would she really go on a trip without telling him, or worse, just announce it and expect him to roll over? He dug deeper and found a message that looked like a money transfer. Opening it, he saw that she'd managed to rake in over $2,500 today alone. No wonder she could afford mystery cruises. Feeling sick, Nathan closed everything up and put her phone back on the charger. He crawled back into bed, his mind a whirlwind of betrayal and anger. The next morning, Vanessa made breakfast as if nothing was wrong. Nathan ate mechanically, avoiding her gaze. She watched him, clearly unsettled by the lack of their usual good morning kiss or conversation. "You okay?" she asked hesitantly. "You seem a little off this morning." Nathan stopped chewing and looked at her blankly. "Aha," he grunted, returning to his food. "Did you sleep all right?" she pressed. "You seem kinda grumpy." "I guess being alone does that to you," Nathan said flatly. "Are you gonna be home tonight or not?" Vanessa's face fell. "Sorry, but Olivia and I have plans again tonight." "Sure," Nathan said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "You know, there's something else we need to talk about. Do I need to make reservations in advance or something? Is there a booking agent I should call?" "What are you talking about?" Vanessa asked, genuinely confused. "Oh, I don't know," Nathan snapped. "Maybe the fact that I hardly ever see you anymore? You're only home to sleep, change, and take off again." "Look, I have things I need to do too," Vanessa said defensively. "Whatever," Nathan said, standing up abruptly. "I've got to get to work. I'll see you when I see you." He grabbed his jacket and keys, heading for the door. He heard Vanessa call out, "I love you," but he didn't respond. She was done with him, and he was quickly reaching the same conclusion about her. After lunch, Nathan got a call from Samantha. "Hey, little bro," she said. "How's the home front?" "Not great," Nathan replied grimly. "Why don't you come over to our place tonight?" Samantha suggested. "Ron and I want to celebrate your birthday." "Sounds nice," Nathan said, feeling a glimmer of warmth. "Will Vanessa be around?" Samantha asked cautiously. "No clue," Nathan replied. "Well, it might be better if she's not," Samantha said. "I got a call from Eric. He says he's got some info, so I invited him too." "Nice," Nathan said, curiosity piqued. "What time should I come over?" "Anytime after work," Samantha replied. "I'm heading out around 4:30. "See you then," Nathan said, ending the call. He wrapped up his work day a bit early and checked the Life 360 app to see where Vanessa was. Sure enough, she was at Sapphire Skies. Again. Shaking his head in disgust, he drove to Samantha's house. Samantha and Ron met him at the door. His sister gave him a warm hug, while Ron shook his hand firmly. It struck Nathan as sad that he'd gotten more affection from his sister in the past couple of days than he had from his wife in what felt like weeks. Ron handed Nathan a beer, and they headed into the dining room. Samantha had everything ready for dinner. Just as she was setting a steaming lasagna on the table, the doorbell rang. Ron answered and ushered Eric in. They all sat down to enjoy the meal, followed by ice cream and cake. Of course, they sang "Happy Birthday" as Nathan blew out the candles, feeling a bittersweet mix of emotions. Afterwards, Samantha handed Nathan a birthday card. He found it genuinely funny and laughed for what felt like the first time in ages. Eric opened his briefcase and pulled out a report. He handed Nathan a copy and began speaking as Nathan skimmed the contents. Eric reluctantly shared his findings after dinner. "Your wife is quite the star at Sapphire Skies," he began, revealing Vanessa's involvement in an upcoming adults-only cruise as Scarlet Siren. The cruise, set to leave that weekend, had sold out quickly. Eric handed Nathan a promotional poster featuring Vanessa's smiling face. He also disclosed that the cruise would be used to film her next adult movie, with ticket holders watching live performances. Nathan felt sick. "Happy birthday to me," he muttered bitterly. Turning to Samantha, Nathan asked about her lawyer friend. Upon confirmation of her expertise, he decided, "When she gets back, I want to file for divorce." Eric assured Nathan he had enough evidence for his vice contacts. They wrapped up the meeting, with Samantha offering her support. Nathan returned home to an empty house, collapsing into bed for a fitful sleep. The smell of bacon woke him the next morning. After getting ready for work, he headed downstairs. "Where were you last night?" Vanessa asked as he sat at the table. "I tried calling the house, but there was no answer." "At Samantha's," Nathan said flatly. "She and Ron threw me a birthday party." Vanessa's eyes widened. "Oh my God, yesterday was your birthday? I completely forgot. I'll make it up to you, I promise." Nathan bit back a bitter laugh. As if her promises meant anything anymore. "Don't worry about it," he said coldly. "Just so you know, I'm spending tonight with Olivia," she said, changing the subject. "We're flying to Miami early tomorrow morning for a shopping trip." "Oh?" Nathan asked, his tone deceptively casual. "When did this come up?" "We've been talking about it for days," she said. "I know it's last minute and all. But she says there are tons of flea markets this weekend, and we can score some amazing deals." "Does this shopping trip include a 5-day Caribbean cruise?" Nathan asked bluntly. Vanessa froze, shock written all over her face. "What are you talking about? What cruise?" "Don't play dumb," Nathan snapped. He pulled out the poster Eric had given him and tossed it on the table. "This cruise. The one with Scarlet Siren." "Yeah, I know who and what you are." "Stop lying. You've been lying to me our entire marriage, haven't you, Siren?" "I don't know what you're talking about," she said weakly. "Nonsense," Nathan said, his voice rising. "Were you ever going to tell me about your abortion 14 years ago? I always wondered why we never had kids, and now I know." He tossed the hospital papers on the table. "You had your tubes tied then, too. Tell me the truth. Was it even my baby?" Vanessa's face crumpled. "I don't know," she whispered. "I was with a bunch of guys while you were gone. I didn't know whose it was, and I couldn't take the chance it wasn't yours." "I'm sorry. I should have told you." "Yeah, you should have," Nathan said, his voice cold. "Were they paying you to enter in them?" "How can you ask me that?" Vanessa said, indignant. "Oh, please," Nathan scoffed. "I know all about your career as a high-priced escort and actress. How long have you been taking money?" Vanessa trembled, tears streaming down her face. "I started taking money for entertainment after the abortion," she said quietly. Nathan shook his head in disgust. "We had an open marriage, remember? We both agreed to it." "Yes, we agreed," Nathan said, his voice rising. "But I think open implies some level of honesty and respect for your partner. The truth is, you've disrespected me, humiliated me, and lied to me for at least 14 years. Isn't that right? For crying out loud, you had an affair with the mayor." He tossed a newspaper clipping on the table showing her with Mayor Thompson. "But you're not completely innocent," Vanessa said defensively. No, not innocent, Nathan admitted. At the start of our marriage, I had one fling with Cindy. But that was it. And you knew all about it because I told you. I've been completely faithful ever since. His voice turned cold. But you're something else. How many guys have you slept with in the last 14 years? Thousands? And now you're a full-fledged escort and porn star. You're lucky you haven't been arrested. Were you ever going to tell me about this? About your offshore account in the Caymans or the expensive coins and necklaces you've got stashed upstairs? Vanessa looked at him, shocked. You know about that? Nathan nodded grimly. I know everything. I also know you've been sleeping with my so-called friend, Trevor. You even did it once at a company picnic, about 100 yards from where I was standing. Tell me, wife, how many times have you been with him this month? I don't know, she answered. Maybe 5 or 6 times. 5 or 6 times, Nathan repeated. That's more than you've been with me in the past month. Do you have any idea what it's like to be considered the biggest fool in town? Do you know how you've humiliated me? I might have to leave town because of you, you're lying. Nathan cut himself off, taking a deep breath. Tears streamed down Vanessa's cheeks, but they had no effect on him anymore. You know, I've asked myself a million times if it's possible to cheat in an open marriage, Nathan said quietly. You've shown me that the answer is yes. I could have handled a casual fling here and there, but I can't handle what you've done. It's not just the lack of physical attention. It's the total disrespect you've shown me for the past 14 years. I'm sorry, Vanessa sobbed. If you want, I won't go on the cruise. I'll stay home. I'll quit Sapphire Skies. I'll be faithful to you from now on. Nathan shook his head. No, you won't. You can't. Loyalty is impossible for you now, and you're already committed to this lifestyle. Besides, our marriage is broken anyway. Go have your latest fling as a married escort. After all, that's what you are. What was it you said to Olivia? That there's no way I can satisfy you on my own anymore? That's not what I meant, Vanessa protested through her tears. Yes, it is, Nathan said flatly. It doesn't matter anymore. Just go. I loved you with all my heart once, but I can't accept what you've become, and I don't want to stay with someone who constantly lies about everything. Go. Have your fling. Make your movie. Do what you need to do. Just know that I'll be filing for divorce when you get back. But I don't want a divorce, Vanessa pleaded. Frankly, my dear, I don't give what you want anymore, Nathan said, echoing the famous line from Gone with the Wind. I'm done with you. Goodbye. Don't be here when I get back. I never want to see your face again. Nathan left for work, deciding to ignore Vanessa's kitchen belongings. That evening, Daniel called, confused about the impending divorce. Nathan explained his reasons and bitterly ended the call. Later, Nathan visited Trevor's wife, Elaine, to reveal the affair. He showed her photos and told her everything. Elaine, though shocked, admitted she'd suspected something. They comforted each other, and Elaine vowed to take legal action. The next day, Trevor confronted Nathan at his office parking lot, angry about being kicked out. A fight ensued, ending with Trevor's arrest. Nathan spent the weekend clearing out Vanessa's belongings and doing chores around the house. He contemplated his new single life. On Monday, returning from work, a news story caught Nathan's attention, prompting him to turn up the TV volume. Breaking news, the newsreader said. Famous local exotic dancer and adult film actress, Scarlett Siren, is believed to be missing at sea along with the other 100 passengers and 35 crew members of the cruise ship Starlight, which the Coast Guard reports capsized during a storm in the Caribbean late Sunday night or early Monday morning. Rescue efforts are still ongoing, but no survivors have yet been recovered, the Coast Guard said. The newscaster continued, Scarlett Siren has been identified as a woman frequently seen in the company of Mayor Richard Thompson. The mayor has consistently denied any romantic involvement with her. The vessel was chartered by a well-known club north of the city. The club sponsored a 5-day adults-only cruise, promising sun, sea, and excitement with Scarlett Siren. The ship was due to return to Miami on Wednesday. Nathan muttered to himself, flipped channels, and saw the same report on another local station. Jumping online, he found several articles saying roughly the same thing. It took a while for the news to sink in. Of course, there was no proof that Vanessa was gone for good. But still, as angry as he was at her, Nathan hadn't wanted her to die. He picked up the phone and called Samantha. "Have you seen the news?" he asked when she answered. "Yeah, I've seen it," she said soberly. "They still haven't found anyone. Are you okay?" "I'm in shock right now," Nathan told her. "I never wanted this." "I know," she said gently. "Let's give them some time to finish their search and see what the investigation turns up. Maybe you should come stay with me and Ron for a couple days?" "No, I'll be fine," Nathan assured her. "But thanks anyway." "Okay," she said. "Do you still want to go through with the divorce if she's found alive?" "Yes," Nathan said firmly. "That's not even a question." "All right," Samantha replied. "Just get some rest and try not to dwell on it, okay?" "Whatever you say," Nathan told her and ended the call. For the next few days, Nathan was miserable. He followed the news obsessively, hoping to find some information about Vanessa, but there was nothing. Nothing at all. He tried searching for her using the Life 360 app, but got no results. He even called Sapphire Skies and talked to Devin, the general manager. The man remembered Nathan from that Sunday when he'd stopped by to see him. "I'm sorry, Nathan," Devin said. "I haven't heard anything. I promise if I hear any news, you'll be the first person I call." "Thanks," Nathan said and ended the conversation. A few days after the initial reports, Samantha drove Nathan to Olivia and Daniel's house so he could pick up Vanessa's car. He couldn't help but notice the pile of papers on the porch, and it was obvious no one had been there in a while. Nathan hadn't heard from anyone in almost 5 months. However, he didn't sit around feeling sorry for himself. He had plenty of time for reflection and introspection when he wasn't busy with work and household chores. He realized he was still a pretty good-looking guy who wasn't even 40 yet. He still had a full head of hair, was in relatively good shape, and had his whole life ahead of him. He decided that he was still young enough to have a child, if he could find a woman who actually wanted to have a family with him. With some embarrassment, Nathan realized that his initial thoughts about an open marriage were probably a consequence of him and Vanessa getting hitched so young. If he were to remarry, he'd definitely insist on exclusivity. He certainly didn't want to go through what he had experienced with Vanessa all over again. One day, Nathan came home and found a letter in his mailbox from one James Hawkins, Esquire. The letter asked him to contact the office as soon as possible regarding the estate of Vanessa White, aka Scarlet Siren. Nathan called and made an appointment for the next morning. James stood up and greeted him with a thin smile as Nathan was ushered into his office. After the receptionist left, he asked Nathan to take a seat. "Please accept my condolences for your loss," James said formally. "About 4 months ago, we received word that the authorities had determined that everyone on the Starlight had perished at sea. Since then, your wife's estate has been in probate." He handed Nathan a check and asked him to sign for it. Nathan looked and saw that the check was for $1.5 million. "I'm sorry, James," Nathan said, confused. "I saw a statement not too long ago that said she had over $40 million in her account. What happened to the rest of it? Taxes?" James shrugged. "No, her account was well below the threshold for estate or inheritance taxes. I don't know what to tell you. That's what was in the account when the authorities made their ruling, minus her recent expenses, which weren't that substantial. She also indicated that she has a valuable coin collection and several necklaces that I believe are now worth about $1 million total," James continued. "Yeah, I know where those are," Nathan said. "Good, because she left them to you along with everything else in her estate," James said. "She also left this for you just before the cruise," he added, handing Nathan an envelope with his name on it in Vanessa's handwriting. "I haven't read it, so I have no idea what it says." Nathan didn't feel like reading it in front of James, so he tucked it in his pocket. "I'll read it later," he said. They finished going over her will, and Nathan signed everything James pointed out. When they were done, James closed the folder, handed Nathan a copy, and looked at him. "Once again, I want to express my deepest condolences," he said. "Are you planning to hold a memorial service for her?" "No," Nathan replied flatly. James seemed a bit taken aback. "You don't understand," Nathan explained. "We didn't part on the best of terms." "I see," James said. "Well, perhaps you should talk to a counselor to help you process your grief. If you'd like, I can recommend someone." "I'll think about it," Nathan said. "Thanks for the offer, anyway." They said their goodbyes, and Nathan left to go back to work. He pulled out the envelope James had given him and read the letter Vanessa had written. "My dear Nathan," the letter began. Nathan snorted and continued reading. The letter revealed Vanessa's infidelity, her secret abortion, and her descent into prostitution. It ended with a plea for forgiveness that Nathan found hard to believe. He tossed the letter in his desk drawer, conflicted about forgiving her. Days later, Alice Hawkins from First Fidelity Life Insurance visited Nathan's office. She delivered a $2 million check from Vanessa's work policy, which had a double indemnity clause. Nathan signed for it in disbelief. Life went on. It couldn't be called fun, but at least the drama was over as Vanessa and Trevor disappeared from his life. Samantha, however, decided to play matchmaker and spent the next couple years setting him up on dates. Most of the women she introduced him to were fun and interesting, and he had a good time dating them. He even had brief relationships with some of them. But there was no spark with any of them. That was until she introduced him to Sophia Carson. Sophia was a 36-year-old divorced woman who had caught her husband in bed with another woman. Strange, Nathan thought. A few years ago, it wouldn't have bothered him much. Now, however, he looked at things differently and felt empathy for her. He told her his story, and they discussed the issue of fidelity. "So, I take it you don't like the idea of an open relationship?" Nathan asked. "Oh, hell no," she replied. "If that's what you want, you can stay single." Nathan considered her words carefully and realized she was right. "You know, I'm inclined to agree," he said. They seemed to get along well and dated for another 6 months before Nathan proposed. Sophia squealed with delight as she hugged him. A little over a year later, she gave birth to a bouncing baby boy named Lucas. Yes, Nathan thought, holding his newborn son in his arms. This is how it should be.